What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. If you're new here, make sure to hit that thumbs up and that subscribe, especially if you found the content helpful. Today, we're going to go over all the stuff that we used yesterday on the river. So, just a breakdown of how to catch those pre-spawn and the spawning fish on a river system, okay? So, stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. All right, everybody. So talking about the pre-spawn and the spawn, there's a few different baits that I really like to use. One of the first baits that I really like to use, whether it's muddy water, whether it's clear water or whatever, but this is specifically targeting those pre-spawn fish, and a lot of times it catches a lot of the buck bass. So if you're fishing, let's just say maybe you're fishing a tournament, you got 4 fish and just need to pick up a fish real quick. This is a easy way to do it to get that 5 fish limit, and that is throwing a fluke, okay? Just a regular standard Zoom fluke. Excuse me. All this pollen falling. We were out on the water yesterday and outside all day, and I mean, it's stopped me up. So I apologize if I'm sniffling and all that, but either way, a fluke, just a Zoom fluke. Yum's fluke does really well too. I use theirs, just whatever I can get my hands on, but a standard fluke. And what I do is I Texas rig this thing. If, let's just say the water's clear, I use a standard 3/0 Gamakatsu hook. If the water's muddy, I actually use the 3/0 Gamakatsu hook, but I use a red hook. And that seems to just give a little bit more contrast in the water where they can see the fluke better. I mainly stick to white. Sometimes I will throw like a crazy chrome or something like that if the water is super clear and I need to get a lot of that flash. But that is a simple way to catch a lot of fish in a short amount of time. Now, the key to using a fluke is a lot of people will take this bait and they will throw it out. When it hits, they'll just slowly walk it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you can catch fish like that. But to catch those more active fish, what I prefer to do is I will work it 2 or 3 times like I'm working a hard jerk bait and get that bait really moving, and then a slow, subtle pause and let it float down for a minute, and then do the same thing over again, maybe twice, pause, 3 times pause, 1 time pause, and I just keep rotating that pattern right there, and then you'll eventually get on a pattern to where, you know, you'll figure out how they like it, in other words. So that is a super simple, easy way to pick up several fish real quick on a river system. Or, I mean, on a lake it works really well too. I use these to skip up under docks and stuff like that all the time. Another big factor right here, this catches those buck bass and it catches those big females that are moving up to spawn. It is a hard to beat bait, and that is War Eagle River Rat spinnerbait. Booyah has their covert series. Either one works well. Me preferably, I like the War Eagle River Rat better. It's just the War Eagles, they move better through the water to me. They have a better just action to them. It may be the confidence that I have in the bait that I catch more fish off of it. I don't know, but either way, I prefer the War Eagle River Rat. And what I do with this thing on a river system, when on those days where it is just super windy, and it's pushing just logs and junk and stuff up against a certain bank into grass and all this stuff, I will take this bait and I will throw it up in the deepest, nastiest stuff, and I'm letting it roll over those logs and things like that, up against the grass, so on and so forth, and I'm bringing that thing back to the boat. Now, once I figure out that the fish are, let's just say they're right up against that grass line or they're right up under them logs, I parallel my boat to that cover. If you're worried about banging up your motor or anything like that, trim that motor up, go parallel with the bank, and you're going to cast this thing right next to all that cover and stuff, and then you're going to bring it parallel to the cover. That way you're in the strike zone the whole time. You'll catch 100 more fish doing things like that. Now, I specifically run this river rat when that water is muddy, okay? Now, if the water's not muddy, then I swap to another one that's very similar to this, but without that red kicker blade. So it's pretty simple. Muddy, you want the red kicker. Non-muddy, leave the red kicker off. It's that simple. Now, let's talk about this one. I work this one very, very similar, but mainly around hard structure as far as like our cover, hard cover, like docks or anything like that, because I can skip this bait very efficiently. This is a jackhammer chatterbait. This is fire crawl, and I like throwing a brush hog on it, a baby brush hog. I break the arms, that way the arms have a lot of action in them, and I break the tail end right here, that way there's a lot of action. But I team these two up and I run it basically wide open, just enough to where the bait's not just rolling over and going crazy. But I'll skip this thing under and around docks. It doesn't matter if the water's muddy, it doesn't matter if the water's clear. This fire crawl color, this time of year, these fish they're coming up to bed. They're gonna get those big protein meals, and a crawfish is the filet mignon of a river. Okay, so they're gonna be tearing these up. That's mainly what I throw around, like docks and stuff like that. Now, this one right here is a very, very efficient way to fish any river system with lily pads, with grass, lay downs, anything. I typically use these swim jigs. Me personally, I typically use these when I get closer back into pockets and stuff to where these fish spawn. Mainly because this is a Hack Attack Strike King swim jig. This thing comes through cover very, very efficiently. This is the bluegill color, and I team it up with an electric shad rage swimmer. I use that as the trailer. And basically what I'm doing, I'm working this bait through the grass, through the laydowns and things like that, pulling those big fish that are taking close to cover and getting ready to bed. Me specifically, I do not focus on spawning fish. It's not because I don't think we should catch them or whatever. The issue is my eyes are not as good as they used to be. I've tried very expensive glasses. It just doesn't work for me. I can't see that good anymore. That's just the way it is. So I specifically have to target pre-spawn and post-spawn fish. Every now and again, I'll get lucky and I'll get one that I can really, really see, but it's very, very rare. But I know the areas that they spawn in, so I can still pick off the fish that I need. Either way, this is a very, very efficient way to cover a ton of water in a short amount of time and catch those big, big, big fish that are getting ready to spawn or that are spawning. You can use this to work on the bed. Me specifically, I wouldn't. Some people may, but I wouldn't. It's just there's a lot of bait there for them to grab. I prefer something like a trick worm, shaky head, something like that. But this, when you get back up in those pockets closer to those spawning areas and you want to run through cover very, very efficiently, and the water may be slightly stained to clear, this bait right here will really outshine just about anything else that you're going to throw on a river system. Now, one of the other things we were throwing, and it's hard to beat this bait any time of year, but a black and blue jig. So when that water was pretty well stained, the areas that we were in, and we're fishing around these laydowns and stuff and around a heavy cover, I take this as a War Eagle finesse jig. This thing is just unstoppable. It comes through everything. I prefer G Money jigs over any jig, but if I'm fishing a river system, this War Eagle finesse jig, it just doesn't get hung up as much. It catches the big ones. It's just a lot of fun. I team it up with a Rage Crawl. I just put this Rage Crawl as the trailer there, black and blue. Super simple. And what I'm doing is I'm popping this jig, okay? So I'm not just slowly dragging this thing across the bottom and then just letting it sit for a little while. I'm actually, when that bait hits bottom, I'm popping. So I'll do like 1, 2, and then I'll just let it sink on tight line. And then a lot of times you'll feel that bite as the line is tightening and as the bait's falling, you'll start feeling that tick, 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 tick. And that's when you start to slowly pull up, and then you'll feel them grab it, and then you set the hook. That's typically how I work this bait. And I'm throwing this around isolated cover, picking off any little thing on the bait, the cutoffs and stuff that I can see on the back drafts from the current and stuff. This bait just outshines a lot of stuff, especially when you're fishing isolated cover. You can cover a lot of water with it, and a lot of times you can just pick up those huge fish no matter where you're at on the river system. So a jig is an all-around must on the river system, okay, especially this time of year. All right, the final thing, those spotted bass and those smallmouth on the river system. A spinning rod is hard to beat. The old shaky head. This is a Zoom Magnum Finesse shaky head. And basically what I do with this, I buy the 90-degree line tie shaky heads, okay? That way the eye is straight up and down. This thing comes through wood. It comes through wood, it comes through grass, it comes through rocks more efficiently without getting hung up as much, okay? We run an 8-pound fluorocarbon to a braided line leader, okay? So, or fluorocarbon leader, I'm sorry. But either way, you get the point. I'm usually using those shaky heads and stuff around those rock piles and stuff out in the deeper water where those smallmouth bass or where those spotted bass tend to stay. A lot of times on river systems and on a lot of lakes, especially your blueback herring lakes, spotted bass and smallmouth will spawn pretty deep, okay? They don't have to move way back in pockets. A lot of people don't understand that. A lot of the spawning bass that I've caught on Smith Lake by itself, those spotted bass are not way up in pockets. Some of them do move up in pockets. Some of them do move up in creeks, but not all. Some of them will just move right up. And when I say up, I don't mean they're going 2 foot off the bank on a main lake point. They'll be 10, 15 foot. But the water's clear enough for their eggs to get the sunlight that they need. Those herring and bluegill will move up, and then the bass will move up and start eating the herring and the bluegill that are trying to eat their eggs. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on that we don't really understand when it comes to pre-spawn and spawn fishing. But either way, just get out there as much as you can, observe what they're doing, and you'll learn a lot more about the habits of the fish that's on your fishery wherever you may be fishing. So, but either way, that's the baits that I prefer to use on a river system this time of year. They're very, very efficient. You can cover a lot of water if you need to, so on and so forth. You can slow them down if you want to. It's all up to you and what the fish are doing. So I hope that helps somebody. I appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, make sure that notification bell's on. That way every time I post a new video, you'll get alerted. I appreciate it. See you next time.